Hi, I am Ravi and this is CrashCourse Economic. So you want to be happy? Here you checklist. Get a job where you make about $82,000 a year. Don't get fired from that job. Make sure your commute is no more than 22 minutes. And please, you got to stop looking at your friends' Facebook profiles.
In the US, the pursuit of happiness is one of our inalienable rights, written into the Declaration of Independence right along with the biggies, life and liberty. The self-help industry is worth billions of dollars. I mean, some of us hire life coaches, and for all that, happiness can seem pretty elusive. Economic thought over the last couple of centuries is built on a model that says we all have unlimited, inexhaustible desire, more equals better, and economists believe they could tell what makes us better off by looking at how we spend our money and time.
But in recent years, those assumptions are being called into question. Economists and psychologists have discovered a disconnect between how we buy and spend and do and what actually makes us feel better off. They've realized that getting paid nothing for doing something can make us feel happier than getting paid. Like say I cook a friend a dinner for his birthday, and after we finish up the last bite of birthday cake, he offered to pay me for it. All of a sudden, my gesture of kindness, my warm fuzzy feelings, they disappear. Economists have discovered a correlation between greater income and greater happiness across cultures. But in some places, the effect is greater than others. But they've also found that more money has diminishing returns when it comes to our day-to-day happiness. Let's go to the thought bubble, says Stan, and I both successful bakers. Thanks to a combination of my impressive baking skill and some luck, I've become a star baker. I make $500,000 a year in a cupcake sale and baking pan endorsement. Stan, on the other hand, is a masterful but not famous baker. He makes $50,000 a year. Stan and I enter a cupcake contest. I win $10,000 in a cupcake category. Stan wins $10,000 for his icing and decoration. But that money is going to have very different effects on our life and our feelings of happiness. For Stan, $10,000 represents a significant portion of his income. That $10,000 may make him feel a whole lot more relaxed and better off. For me, an extra $10,000 is nice and all, but it's not going to change much about how I live my life or what I do with my time. $10,000, cool. What else? Beyond some level of income, the value of each additional dollar has diminishing returns in terms of our day-to-day well-being. A 2010 study found in the US it was about $75,000 a year, or about $82 when you adjust for inflation. After that, the researchers discovered a person's day-to-day happiness level just didn't change that much. But the same researcher also looked at another form of happiness, asking people how satisfied people were with their place in the world and their money matter. The study found that there was a difference between the wealthy and super-duper insanely wealthy when it comes to overall satisfaction with their life. Time thought bubble. So we know that some people have a natural predisposition to be unhappy, and some people seem more inclined to constant joy. Those people are annoying. For a long time, psychologists believe that people have a set point for happiness, and that most big changes, positive or negative, had only a temporary effect on happiness. But more recent studies show that economic choice and circumstances can have lasting effects just how happy we are. For one, there is a pretty clear relationship between unemployment and happiness. Basically, being out of work can make people out and out miserable. By some estimate, unemployment people have 5 to 55% lower life satisfaction scores than people with jobs. Studies have found that the negative effects of unemployment are greater in high-income countries. There's also research showing that the happiness of middle-aged people is more negatively affected by unemployment than older people. You might be thinking that people without a job aren't making any more money, so of course they be less happy. But economists have found that the loss of well-being due to unemployment is greater than can be explained by the immediate loss of paycheck. One explanation is that unemployment makes people worry not just about paying the bills today, but also about the future. Economists have also found that moving from a part-time job to a full-time job makes people happier. But the correlation between our work and happiness doesn't continue up and up and up. At some point, when you're working all the time, happiness levels start declining. Imagine it like an upside down U-shape, kind of like an I'm working all the time and never get to see my friend's sad face. Long work commutes make people less happy. Credit card debt makes people less happy. And inflation, it turns out, especially unpredictable inflation, can make people less happy. We like stability and for our savings to hold their value. It's not just the ups and downs of what you can afford that affects your happiness. It's also what the neighbors can afford.
There's something called the reference income hypothesis or rank income hypothesis. It says that the satisfaction I get from my income and consumption level depend on how I'm doing compared to everyone else around me. So if the wealthy star baker version of myself live around millionaire, I might be less happy than if I live in a middle class neighborhood. Even if making the same income. A 2009 study found this is true to an extent. Researchers found out Americans were happier when they lived in rich neighborhoods in poor counties. The author wrote it appears that individuals, in fact, are happier when they live among the poor, as soon as the poor do not live too close. This idea that status matter may be more than absolute income brings us around to something known as the Eastern paradox. It's named after an economist named Richard Anderson, who back in the 70s found that as the income level in country rises, the average level of happiness in those countries doesn't always follow. This happens even though we also know there is, at some level, a positive relationship between income and happiness. So what's going on? One explanation is that we derive happiness from status rather than absolute income. So when an entire country gets richer, even if all incomes go up, all status and relative income stay about the same, and we don't get any happier. Another explanation gets back to the set point of happiness we talked about before. Some economists talk about the hedonic treadmill or hedonic adaptation. Here Rousseau describing the phenomenon. Since these conveniences, by becoming habitual, has almost entirely ceased to be enjoyable and at the same time degenerated into to needs. It becomes much more cruel to be deprived of them than to possess them was sweet, and men were unhappy to lose them without being happy to possess them. I can remember the joy I felt when I got my first smartphone. Now I adapt to the point that my phone is kind of annoying, but if somebody took it away, I might cry. There's third explanation out there regarding the Eastern paradox, and that is not actually a paradox at all. Basically, that is doesn't hold. There has been some research that shows the paradox is only true for relatively wealthy countries, where the basic needs of citizens are already being met. In lower GDP countries, the study finds there are overall increase in happiness when income rises. More recently, economists Bessie Stevenson and Justin Woofer accused that average level of happiness rise in country where income rise regardless of how wealthy that country is. The data, they say, point to a clear relationship between GDP per capita and average level of well-being. All of this happiness research matter when you think about how government measure progress and decide what the right path is for a country. For a long time, economic growth has been at the center of economic policy. It explains some of our global fixation on GDP number. But if you believe that an increase in income and stuff isn't going to make people happier and better off. Income growth may not be the best way to mark or judge the progress of a society. A focus on GDP and growth might hide and even exacerbate issues like income inequality and environmental damage related to increased consumption. In the 1920s, the king of tiny country of Bhutan proclaimed that gross national happiness is more important than gross national product. Instead of measuring economic progress using GNP or GDP, the government tracked GNH, gross national happiness, which considered the social, physical, spiritual, and environmental health of the citizen, and it's not just Bhutan. In 2011, the United Nations adopted a resolution that called for member states to give greater weight to happiness and well-being when figure out how to pursue social and economic development. But this focus on happiness, in addition to economic growth, isn't a truly new idea. All the way back in 1968, U.S. presidential candidate Robert Kennedy got up in front of an audience at the University of Kansas and criticized the focus on economic output alone. Our gross national product now is over $800 billion. But that gross national product, if we judge the United States of America by does gross national product count air pollution and cigarettes advertising and ambulance to clear all highway of carnage? He go on. It's measured neither all with nor all courage, neither all wisdom, nor all learning, neither all compassion, nor all devotion to all kind. It's measure everything in short, except that which make life worldwide. Well, I don't think we can write a better ending to the show or to the series than that. Thanks for watching. It's been such a pleasure.